I don't know what that was.
Let's hope that this is going to be working properly. I made the transition over, so if somebody is in here, hello, welcome to the Alternative Blacks podcast. What's up, everybody? What? So I have this going off to the side. I should be able to hear our voices soon. Yep, I hear my voice. That's all that matters. Welcome, everybody, to the Alternative
All right.
Blacks.
Oh, yeah. Blah, 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 blah.
Right. Welcome to the Alternative Blacks podcast. This is our live series now on YouTube. So if you are watching this, wherever you're watching it live or recorded, make sure that you are subscribed so you always know when we are going live, which is every other Thursday around 7 o'clock. I'm not going to say 7 o'clock because we rarely ever hit it right on the mark, right? But today
7 o'clock-ish.
Today we got a couple topics that we're going to discuss. The main one being Wimbledon and the pretty impressive run by Chris Eubanks.
Woo!
He did a pretty good job. The only match I actually watched live was the Medvedev match, of course. So I have some thoughts and feelings on that match, but we'll get into that because the other talking point I'll get into after we introduce our beer. So, what are you drinking today?
Well, I am drinking today.
I thought you were going to say Bud Light.
I am drinking Haymaker Double IPA from Millworks in Harrisburg.
Oh my God! Speaking of Harrisburg, did you see the market?
Yeah. Yes, I did. Crazy. Millworks happening to be right across the street.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty wild. But this is Haymaker. Did I say Haymarket earlier?
No.
Or am I just now getting it confused?
You're getting it confused because I brought the market into the conversation.
Oh, okay, yeah. Haymaker. There is a beer called Haymarket. Right?
Is that from like what?
No?
Buffalo?
I don't know. I feel like there's a wheat ale called Haymarket. But this is a double IPA. It's sitting at 8.5%. So it's Bruising Banner approved. I think all labels right next to the right next to the was it the Surgeon General's warning about alcohol? It should just have like a check mark.
Bruising banner approved or not?
Yeah, bruising banner approved. Or just right next to the ABV. Like the ABV should have a blue check mark.
Right. I know. I agree. Definitely agree with
Yeah.
that.
Um.
So what is it like?
This.
Is it an IPA? Is it
Yeah, it's double IPA. Tropical notes of tropical fruit, pine, and citrus. The hops are Citra, Mosaic, and El Dorado.
all the good ones?
Not all the good ones. I think if they wanted to take this to the next level, they could have added some Simcoe. No, this is like, and I said hazy earlier. I just meant to say double IPA. Right. I said haymaker. No, it is just a double IPA, kind of getting towards more of like a West Coast style.
So on the Pioneer.
I would call this more on the, it's piney, but I would say it's more on the balanced side.
Oh, okay.
It's just really refreshing. What I mean to say is, it's hazy only because it probably just didn't get filtered, filtered down and separated. It's not like there's no lactose in it or anything, or it's not dry hopped. It's just really crisp, slightly piney, but mostly balanced.
Nice
so
little crispy boy.
Really enjoying this.
Nice. What would you rate it?
Right now, 4.25, might go up to a 4.5. It's delicious.
I love rating these beers and like, it's a 4.25. Might give it a 4.5 later. Who knows? Remains to be seen.
And then later, I never say what happens.
That's what we both do. All right. I am drinking.
What are you drinking?
A refreshing Coors Light. I'm
what are you actually drinking?
I am drinking an Anchor steam beer.
Ooh, Anchor steam beer.
Since
from San Fran?
Yep, since 1896. America's oldest craft brewery?
Yuang Lang might have something to say.
Something to say. I wanted to bring this up with you.
About Yuang Lang?
No, about Anchor, to see how on top of things you are as of late.
On top of things as of late? Well, geez, if it's as of late, I'm fucked.
Yeah, so.
Is there something happening with Anchor?
It's ceasing operations after 127 years. Anchor's done.
Really?
Anchor's done.
Not like bought out by another. They're just not making Anchor beer anymore?
It's over, man.
Damn.
Yeah, I have not read up too much on it. I wasn't sure, again, if you were seeing any of the, I know you're not the social media person, but the breweries in PA and brewing in PA pages all have something to say, because the news articles read, America's oldest craft brewery is closing down. Everyone, well, what about Yuengling? And I'm just like, if it wasn't in PA,
I know I said, what about Yuengling? Yeah, I know I said, what about Yuengling? I also don't care.
Right. It's very interesting, though. So I decided to have, I grabbed like a 4-pack of it from the Foodery.
I need to do that.
Yeah, because it's something that I wanted to make sure that I got to like try at least one more time. I remember getting their Christmas ale, which that's going to be kind of a huge hit, I think, come holiday season. Not seeing that anymore is going to be interesting. But even like looking at the, like, it looks like they were trying, because I almost thought this was Twisted Tea for a second.
Is that always what they? I mean, it looks like a very classic label.
No,
That's not what it always looked like?
It had that very rustic looking like logo. So I know you're gonna quick look it up anyway. Definitely do that.
Yeah.
It was more of that like parchment paper-esque with a more traditional tattooed style Anchor, kind of like that.
I see. Yeah.
Penmanship type.
The old school. Yeah, like the old school sailor tattoo Anchor.
And
from all the cartoons.
And this is a great beer. Like, I'm assuming it's like an amber ale, almost.
Yeah. Well, it's a steam beer.
Yeah.
which is I remember learning about
Oh, I don't.
steam beers. Um, I took a homebrewing class
Right.
at Lancaster Homebrew, and they made us. He was making a steam beer, and he went through the history of the steam beers. Um, I believe it's a lager, but the whole reason it's called a steam beer is because of the very particular climate over there, where it's really hot during the day and really cold at night.
Mm.
So they would like brew the beer and then they would pump it up to the roof to cool at night. And because of the huge temperature difference, you would just see steam coming off of the roofs.
Yeah.
So it's called a steam beer.
Now,
But I always thought that was a really cool. It's a nice little history
yeah,
thing as
it
well.
makes sense. The name Anchor and everything. So one of the things I thought was cool with Anchor is who, I guess not the original owners, but like the first major like people to purchase Anchor. Do you know who that was?
Do I know? Should I know?
It's his name also happened to be Fritz Maytag, so it was the great grandson of the Maytag Empire.
Really?
Yeah, they bought
Oh,
that for a while, and I guess in like 2017 or something like that, they were eventually sold to Sapporo, who would be the company that owns Stone now. So I don't think it bodes well for Stone if
that's
this
right.
is ceasing operations now after what 5 years, 6 years. Um, yeah, so
Jeez. Wow.
it's
Yeah. I
it's
forgot that Sapporo bought Stone.
yeah, it's a historic beer. Is again why I wanted to get my hands on it one last time, just to really try to understand it. I can see why even uh, Yingling it should be in the conversation if we're going to count Anchor in the conversation. Anchor didn't put out an IPA until what? When did they put out their first IPA? In 2014. But then,
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
you know, I think we've talked about, being really stringent about what is a craft brewery. And I guess technically they're a craft brewery, right?
right.
Hey, there's places that make only ales. There are places that do just craft lagers, right? So I guess why, they aren't Bud Light. It's not like it's a Bud Light or Budweiser situation or Coors situation. You know how I know that's not just a prop? The mountains are still blue. You got that out of the
That's how
fridge.
you know it's cold.
The beer is terrible when the whole marketing is surrounded by it's cold, man,
Them hills is
which is
cold.
not even something they did.
It's awful. Awful.
You could
Awful.
tell how cold Coors is.
Cures. Um,
Coors.
but yeah, I thought it was an interesting thing to bring up. I really don't have too much to say about it. San Francisco, like California, the West Coast is definitely something that I would love to explore one day and jump around from brewery to brewery. There's Hannah with the cat. Ow. I drive by attacked by the cat as Hannah walked with him. Yeah, historic brewery. I put it right up there with when we're talking about early craft beer with Sierra Nevada, Lagunitas. That whole West Coast movement of beer and what kind of paved the way. The building that it existed in looked freaking incredible, and so that would have been the only reason I wish I would have gone out there to try it. Anchor wasn't this beer that I was trying to get all the time. I do remember having its Christmas ale at one point, very early on while drinking craft beer, but outside of that, it's I guess the question comes down to like, can you get away with being in the craft beer space and not really trying to push the envelope, doing anything like new, if your beer doesn't like exist in that trendy like bubble, right? So like Sam Adams doesn't just do like Boston
Right.
Lager and like hold on to Boston Lager for the whole year. They have the Oktoberfest. They have at all of their different locations. They have special beers that are only available there. You know, it's something different. Yingling might be the only thing that actually like holds on to something.
Yeah, not necessarily a good thing.
Right.
They hold on to the way things used to be, in every sense of the word.
Right.
So,
But yeah. So I guess that was
you having
just.
I was just gonna say, it looks like there might have been some havoc going on back there.
Always. Just staring Connor down.
Always some havoc.
Oh. Do you want to jump into this Wimbledon conversation then?
Yeah, man. Let's get into it.
How much have you been watching? Like, have you been like pretty on top of it? I know
a
I
lot.
haven't.
So it's kind of been like the ritual. So I on YouTube TV like saved it so that you can just go back and watch it later. So, but only what the annoying thing is the way it's covered. Really, the way to do it is to have ESPN Plus, honestly, or some other not American network that you can actually watch the matches you want. Because what ends up happening is they jump. They're jumping back and forth between matches you don't care about.
So you have to have like ESPN Plus in order to do that, because we have ESPN Plus, and while there are matches available, it's only like the certain versions. I don't think we can watch it if it's playing on ESPN3 for whatever reason. You can't watch it.
Yeah, so and it's tennis, so they would much rather have some dumb sports talk show that's talking about like the NBA Summer League instead.
I was just gonna say the Summer League, but I thought that was just gonna make me a hating ass bitch.
No, like some people are really into the Summer League, and I get it, but I am not at all into the Summer League. It's not that interesting to me. So, it is what it is. But yeah, so like the Eubanks Medvedev match wasn't recorded because it wasn't on ESPN. It was on a different channel.
Probably ABC.
So they were just the recording we had just was jumping to it.
That was the TV.
It's like, oh, it's going to a fifth set. It's like, and of course the ESPN app just completely spoiled it for me while I was working anyway. But I didn't get to watch any of the Medvedev match. I got to watch a good portion of his match against Cam Norrie and Tsitsipas too. So I was able to get that, but not Medvedev. They were showing Alcaraz instead. Alcaraz and Runa, which was it's weird. It was competitive, but it was still only a 3-set match versus the Eubanks Medvedev was a 5-set match.
Look, and so what? Medvedev won the first set, and then Eubanks won 2 sets in a row, and then he just was unable to like really break him. And I think that's what it really came down to, was he was either needing to break him in that fourth set, that fourth set, or break him in that tiebreaker. Like, he just needed a competitive edge if he could have beat him once. And it sounds so simple, right? Like when you're thinking about the sport of tennis, like, yeah, Tyler, that's the sport, that's how you score. But it kind of showed the difference between like a number 47 ranked player versus like the number 3 like seeded player in the tournament, right? It just, that been there before, done it before element that you can't really talk about. Like, you just have to understand it.
Yeah.
I'm in. I think it takes me back to Coco Gauff. I think it takes me back to Tiafo. You know, it's this expectation of how do these people perform. You notice the three that I said. How do the black players perform in these moments? And do we hold them to a different, you know, expectation? I wonder. Did I expect more out of him versus just enjoyed the match than I should have? Because anybody else would be like, oh, this is really cool, but like there feels like there's so much more riding on just then, like Chris doing well and doing as best as he can. I think it's another element of what does American men tennis look like, especially American black men. Like I was just like, oh my god, he has so much on his shoulders and he's a fucking slim frame.
This is exactly why I wanted to talk about Wimbledon, because there's this whole like it's in like there's a couple different angles too. It's like, what is the weight that just a player from a particular country has?
180 pounds. 6'7", 180 pounds, Chris.
Oh, I mean, you've seen him. He is literally a twig.
I've seen him in person. He is a twig.
You've seen him in person?
At the U.S. Open, yeah.
Oh, I mean, he's just so scared.
But 140-mile-hour serve?
Dude. Well, I mean, if you're that damn tall and long, you just use gravity. I don't know. So, side note, they did a graphic, like I think it was in the fourth round of like the highest first serves in the tournament so far by round, and Diego Schwartzman had like the highest second round serve, and he's like 5'7".
He is tiny. Was he Argentinian?
It's ridiculous. Yeah, Argentina.
Yeah, that dude is insane. I love watching him because he's just he covers everything. He's stocky as fuck. Like
that's what I'm saying. Like, how do you hit? It was like 100. It was like 136 or something. 135. So it's like, how are you that short and you can serve that hard?
Because you're fighting the net too. Like, yeah, you're always supposed to be hitting up on your ball anyway. Like, you're not really hitting down, but
like someone like Eubanks, Isner,
you're hitting down.
Well, like what do they call them? The serve bots. The Riley Opelka called it was like him, Isner, and who was that one dude that was even taller than Isner? It was like something with a K. Anyway, Krasarevich or something like that. Like he was basically just John Isner but slightly taller. Mm-hmm. So like those guys are actually serving. You can actually serve down at that point.
Right.
So of course you can hit hard. But Eubanks, what I liked is, you know, I think the serve bot thing, Isner served and volleyed on grass because he had to, because there was no way he could sit at the baseline and win points. Like Eubanks
did everything.
Eubanks has more of a game from the baseline, and I think that's what was most exciting to me. It was just like his game plan is to disrupt it, and he's playing a game plan, and he went in and you know, he just kind of did it.
Did you watch any of the highlights from the Medvedev match?
I haven't watched the highlights yet,
okay.
So I'm just.
It seemed as going back to the been here before conversation. It almost seemed as if it was that mental pressure, right? It seemed as if he could have just been almost like that goldfish, right, where you just forget the point and get back into it.
Yeah.
He seemed to get frazzled by things, which I always have a hard time having that conversation, because at one point it's just like, let your emotions out and then get back into the point. There's nothing wrong with being like, bruh, and then coming back to center. But it seems like if you do that, especially if you're a black player and do that, the conversation is on the, oh, he let the emotions get the best of him, versus like, well, the whole sport is supposed to be about forgetting the point. So if you yell for like 2 seconds and then you get back on the court and hit a winner like Serena, it doesn't matter. But they're still going to talk about Serena as, oh, she just needed better court composure, right? So I I
Yeah,
struggle
there's
watching
that.
Chris. Like I struggle watching him because again, having those expectations, him having an extra weight on his shoulder that he probably can't handle, because him being a Black American player, 27 years old, from Atlanta, well, Chicago, Atlanta, you just really were rooting for him in a match that all signs pointed to it should have ended the way it ended. But you sitting at the edge of your seat, just being like, if he can only break him one more time, he has this match.
Yeah, like it to me there. It felt kind of like the U.S. Open match last year, Alcaraz and Tiafoe, where it's just like Tiafoe's on this tear right now, and he's playing so well. He just needs like a couple points to go his way, just a small stretch to break this open, and he just couldn't break through it. But I think once again, obviously, Tiafoe's younger. I think he's like in his low 20s. He's like 23 or something. Because he turned pro pretty young, I think at 18 or something like that, maybe.
He's 25.
25, okay. So like, but Tiafoe's obviously been on the stage longer.
Yeah.
So like you expect a little bit more from him. So obviously,
and he had that
him leaving early is a
since
disappointment.
Since he was a junior, like
right. Yeah.
Chris Eubanks, he did really well at Georgia Tech, right? Like he did incredible.
Yeah.
Like he was an insane tennis player. But it was the focus on him's never been like, oh, Chris Eubanks, who's gonna do better this tournament, Francis Tiafoe or Chris? It was like, Chris was just like, oh, this is cool.
Well, he wasn't even in the top 100 until this year.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think why I enjoyed this so much is because he broke through, and he's finally got that breakthrough. And yeah, it was later on, but he did it, and now he's on this tear. He's on this tear where I think he won a tournament leading into Wimbledon, and now he gets to round of 16. Or no, we got the quarterfinal.
Right, and
he got to quarterfinals. Quarterfinal.
He beat Tsitsipas.
Yeah, he beat him up. And
saying that alone, there was no reason to think that he couldn't have won this match against Medvedev.
Right? And by all accounts, like Medvedev was on the ropes. As the little bit that they cut to that tie break where it's like Eubanks had a chance. Like I think it was like 6-6 in the tie break, and he just
dumped it in the net. It was so sad. My heart dropped.
And I think that's where it was like, damn. And then he comes out, he gets broken early, and then it's kind of like, okay, Medvedev just kind of stayed. But the tie break is probably where the match was decided, right? Because that swung the momentum, But he was this close to beating Tsitsipas, Medvedev, Cam Norrie. Like this tear he was on, it was a tear, and it's not like he didn't wet the bed against Medvedev. So I'm really excited. I think American tennis is having this like resurgence now, where it's like, unfortunately, when the people that were our age or slightly older, there's like a lull there where it was really rough. And now I think like the people slightly younger coming up now.
And I'm really hoping like USTA is going to take advantage of this and really just like, I'd be pulling to bring these guys into local clubs as much as possible, especially in the inner cities, where things are theoretically a little more accessible. Just to try to build up American tennis, so like inner city tennis, because I think the entertainment level is going to need to be there. You're going to need people that have personalities, right? And I think to talk about it, there's a sleeper. I don't even know how well she's doing right now, but I was actually surprised with how she was doing this tournament. And she did lose in the quarterfinals yesterday as well, it looks looks like. But
Who
Madison
was that?
Keys.
Oh, Madison Keys. Yeah, she a little bit of a resurgence
Yeah,
there.
and it wasn't like like she's just playing some people and like, she should have been
No, she
probably
was
higher.
unseated.
She was like, yeah, the 25 player or something like that, right? Uh, so it was good to see her back, especially because she was right there before Coco,
Oh, she
and
was
then
25. Yeah.
she was right there before Coco, and then she started to teeter. It was her, Sloane Stevens, and then Coco was coming up behind. And then Coco did that crazy run in Wimbledon back in, 2016 or something like that. And Madison Keys kind of fell off. Sloane Stevens
I
kind
think
of
it was
fell
like
off.
2018, 19.
Right. But so it was cool to,
Yeah,
like,
Keys fell off.
as I was watching the highlights and everything, I kept hearing Keys, Keys, Keys. I was like, whoa, Madison's back? What? This is awesome. So American
Yeah,
tennis
because
on
like
both sides is a little more exciting right now.
yeah, finally, because it's been the women carrying American tennis for the longest. You know,
Um,
obviously, like
and then my big other talking point on this all, though, was, say what you will about Kyrgios, right? I think there's always a lot of negative that comes into how he acts, how he holds himself, his demeanor and everything. Um, and sometimes everything that comes on from like even though like I've seen stuff on like Twitter. I was like, oh, Nick wants to be like a Black American so bad, just like let it go, blah 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 blah, right? So there's that crab in the barrel shit again, right?
yeah,
But I think it's very interesting because Nick comes in being this insanely athletic, insanely powerful, insanely different tennis player, and so the expectations are grossly different than his white counterparts, right? Well, where we expect him to act like, behave, perform, and then you see the like actual physical, like mental toll that has happened with him, especially now that he's a little more vocal about like actual his mental health, which I think is wonderful. Um, and I think that's where I start to get scared with players like Tiafoe, especially where some of the fear comes with Eubanks, Chris, because he makes a tear like this, he makes a run, and this is a very relatively short amount of time, and so next tournament is U.S. Open, and what is, especially being on home court,
yeah.
American soil, like what is the expectation going to look like? Like he's going to have a huge following. Like those tennis fans at the center are going to be following this kid around. Kid, he's 3 years younger. But
This kid.
It's going to be such a big stage for him. And I just hope, he's allowed to live in the moment, enjoy it, bask in that fandom that's going to be around him. But I hope, like, he doesn't make it to the quarterfinals. I hope there isn't, like, this, it's such a disappointment, blah, blah, blah. He should have been working harder in this transitionary period and all this other stuff. That's where I get scared because, I don't know, maybe we're just not treating these players right. Maybe there's a reason why American tennis hasn't been this great thing in so long.
Yeah, I think it's valid because I think that's just how tennis fandom is. Like, I feel like tennis fans in general put all this pressure. Everyone needs to be exactly like
Everybody.
they have to have grace like Federer, and they have to have tenacity like Nadal, and the mental game like Djokovic. Like everyone has to be like those three. And I think people can get stuff put on them too early, and I think we saw that with Donald Young. If we're talking about Americans, I think he kind of crumbled under the pressure. He was like that phenom type that Nick was, and
Who was
I
that again?
think Nick kind of Donald Young.
Oh yeah, I barely remember him.
That's the thing. Like he should like be an OG on the tour at this point.
Right.
But like he like crumbled under the pressure of being this phenom when he was younger and just couldn't break through mentally. And it's kind of like that thing where like Nick is far more gifted, sure, but like I think the phenom thing is what is where you can see people fall into that hole. Just kind of like Nick is doing, right? Like he's so good and he came up so quick that he wasn't allowed to grind and mature. He didn't need to do that to get to the highest level. So people just expect him to be to just be the greatest on in the on tour because of the talent. I would like to think that well, one, I think Tiafoe's going to have more of that pressure for the U.S. Open because of the disappointing Wimbledon, leaving early and he didn't play well at all, and the frustration there. So plus the way he came into it last year, I think all the pressure is going to be on Tiafoe, and I think that's going to help. It sucks for Tiafoe, but it's going to help Eubanks in the sense that he's going to have hype around him. But I think it's just going to be that. It's just going to be hype. I don't think it's going to be the crushing expectations because that's going to be on Francis.
Yeah.
And also once again, I think even further than that, I would be more worried about Francis mentally than Chris, just because Francis was a young player. He had the talent. He got on tour quick and young, and he's been trying to grind and work his way. Now he's been able to do it,
I'm
but
definitely
Chris
bucketing.
had to grind and grind and grind. So
I'm definitely bucketing the mental health conversation, like not just saying like Chris only. I think Chris might have a little added pressure, but talking about the mental health picture of men's tennis, yeah, I because of what I said earlier, the tension on him as a junior player, the pressure that has always existed. There was that lull period where kind of like he teetered off, and we're just like, oh, we're going to see like a different resurgence of like men's players maybe, and then he had that like, I think it was at the Open or at Wimbledon where he had a huge fucking hit again, and ever since then he's been like right there in the conversation. He's always been kind of just lingering. Yeah, I completely agree. Tiafoe's mental health is something that needs to be watched closely as well. Thank God there's been players like Naomi Osaka who's really been just up front and like, hey, this is a real thing, and I'm going to step back because of this. I think her in general just created a different environment and atmosphere for tennis in general, especially as a minority tennis player. But I think what I would like to see, I'm going to try to pay attention this time. Like I have a really bad time. I have a really hard time paying attention to what players are doing in a sport like tennis, because like at least with football, basketball, baseball, all these organizations are at least highlighting what their players are doing even on the off season, because it's a team, and so like I get to see what my team's players are doing because my team is highlighting them. But when it's men's tennis, women's tennis, 4 big tennis tournaments in a year, well, there's other tournaments going on, and there's not really an off season. I think what happens is you don't see the community as much. You can see what an individual does if you're really interested, but you don't see like what are Black American tennis players in the circuit doing? Like, what does that community look like? I don't think there's enough about that. Maybe there shouldn't be, but I personally would feel. I think it would create a different environment. I think, again, USTA level side of things, and my history with that type of stuff, right? If I'm in the USTA and I'm still trying to like build hype around tennis and American culture, maybe I start doing what was the NFL offseason thing that they would do where they would follow like the fucking Browns or something like that?
Oh, Hard Knocks.
Yeah. Maybe you just follow some of these guys around. I know they had the Breakpoint series on Netflix that talked on a couple different issues, but you know, you have the Tennis Channel for a reason for programming like this. You know, you gotta. I think you gotta humanize the sport a little more.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like, and I think it's definitely an American issue in that sense, where it's, you know, tennis is such a global sport, but in America, it takes, you know, it's not even in the back seat. It's like in the third row in terms of general precedent,
Right.
you know, as a society. So it's just like, you know, that just is what it is, right? It unfortunately that's the issue, the difficulty. I feel like if we were anywhere else in the world, maybe it wouldn't be like that. But you know, at the same time, at the same time, tennis is like you said, it's one of those sports because you are a single person, you are the team, right? It is really a kind of like a fan of like passion project. It's like being a fan of. I would consider it more like people who are fan music. So it's like you're a fan of this artist, and
Yeah.
this artist might be a part of this this label,
Right. But you don't care about the label.
quote unquote, your country, right? In tennis, but you aren't actually. It's not like everyone's going, yeah, I can't wait to see what all the Universal artists are doing this year. You know, it's more like I want to see what Tiafoe's going to do this year. Now,
Right.
obviously, you're rooting for your country, but
So okay, so I think this is really interesting because you can be looking at it from like, oh, I really want to see what all Def Jam's doing, or you could be like, oh, I really want to see what Rockefeller is doing, right? Because there is that moment of time where Rockefeller is underneath Def Jam, right?
yeah, we don't talk about that.
But I think this is where I'm coming from because there's more than just Tiafoe, Eubanks, Coco, Stevens, Keys, right? There's more than that happening in American tennis.
Oh, Michael Moe. Was it Michael Moe who beat Felix?
August the Canadian.
Ajay Aliassime.
That's actually the name.
It is the actually, yeah, I know. I know. So that I like that that match was nuts. So,
but to the point, real quick, I'll wrap it up. What I'm trying to say is, if I'm the USTA, maybe I'm not looking to get everybody hype around American tennis because I think that's been the idea for a while. Maybe I do take that like different approach where I'm just like, hey, this is, you know, we are the country of Arthur Ashe, of Althea Gibson, you know, like let's focus on the Rockefeller part of Def Jam for a second and see if we can't build hype around the hype.
Yeah.
And maybe that is
build hype around the people, you know. I think it's such an individual sport. Like if when Tiafoe, like, okay, so Eubanks made it to the quarterfinal. It wasn't what it what a great day for American tennis. It's like, no, what a great day for Eubanks.
Yeah.
You know, what a run Eubanks had.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when 5 or 6 Americans do well, now it's, wow, American tennis has done well in this tournament. But it's not about, that's the second statement. It's not the first statement.
So I'm gonna like exactly. So I'm not worried about American tennis as a whole. I am trying to build up the hype around exactly these players that we know we're going to send to maybe the Olympics or maybe we're going to send to like a Davis Cup team, right? Like the people that we know are that team tennis element. So when we see it with the Philadelphia Freedom and that hype that they build and that type of environment that they build and how you'll see at the U.S. Open too how it's a lot different than the French and and Wimbledon. It's actually, if I would have to compare the two, my God, that stinks, bud. If I'd have to compare any tournament to the U.S. Open, it is the Australian Open. That Aussie, oi, right? That type of environment where it's more
Yeah,
like
that
I'm in the
atmosphere.
stand drinking and having a good time. Australian Open, which is weird again because we're going to go back to Nick Kyrgios and you want to be American so bad. It's like, but they have the closest atmosphere compared to London, Paris, or Melbourne.
The odd thing, yeah, I guess the odd thing though is I feel like the general populace of England or the UK isn't Wimbledon and that atmosphere. That is such the old guard, and even Roland Garros too. But even the French is more is even I think the French would be considered closer to the other two majors in terms of atmosphere rather than Wimbledon. Like Wimbledon is such an outlier of we don't care how good the technology is. We're going to keep having Agatha, who's 95 years old, stand there on the line calling balls in and out. It's like, do you have to sneeze or what's happening?
No, that's
Is that a yawn?
That's the ball person.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's like, and there's been a lot of controversy,
Always.
and it's just one of those things where it's like, it's more apparent now because other majors have gone away from that and it's worked out, you know? There's certain things where the human element, is a good thing. I don't know that, line judges and line calls like that should be one of those
not when the
things.
technology exists, and not when it's
Yeah,
like
it's not.
that inaccurate.
It's not like, yeah, like I feel like it's kind of the opposite of like the argument for robo umps, at least for plate calls. I feel like there's something a little more fluid and natural there
Yeah.
with home with like calling balls and strikes.
And
But
even
to be
that,
completely honest, if they had robo umps to call outs at like a bag, I wouldn't mind that either.
especially if like the technology would exist within like shoes and balls and everything like that, where it's like like just indisputable. Versus like I think the human nature in the strike zone is something nice, is a nice element of baseball, because it's like, oh, this umpire calls stuff a little high, this one calls it a little out, right? Like
Right.
that's the
Or like
game.
this catcher can frame it and there's
And that's a beautiful
it's
art. That's like that.
right.
You take that away from being a catcher, and like you make being a catcher a
You
little
make the
less
game.
exciting.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like that type of stuff. The balls and strikes is the most controversial thing,
Right.
but
the
once again, as long as they're being consistent,
Yeah.
it's generally not an issue.
Right, but I think with tennis, the only thing that I see becoming an issue sometimes, or I've seen during play where it's caused a controversy, isn't the out calls. Like, tennis players are gonna fucking bitch about it regardless. If the ball hit in and around and the technology exists and it's like within this amount of like, you should be lucky that you could even like ask, are you sure, right?
Yeah.
It's the net calls. It's the on the serves and shit like that where the net goes off for whatever reason and the ball didn't even touch it. That's where I'm like,
yeah.
That's why you have like sometimes the line judges or whatever actually have a physical hand on it, so they can feel if it actually hits. But
Yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting one because how do you gauge that, right? Sometimes, sometimes if you're hitting a ball so fast, just if it got so close that the air around the ball happens to make the net sensor go off, that's still not. It didn't touch the net.
Yeah, and just thinking about
well, I know you.
us playing, but like, we've played stuff where the ball obviously doesn't hit the net, but people are calling let because of the sound that happens around it, right? If it's a matter of how someone's feet scrape the ground after it, or the the reverb from whatever, right? And it causes that sensation of hearing the net get hit. And it's just like, it's one of the most infuriating things. Yeah, so I think that element is the only part where you still need the human nature, but let these games be automated. You know, like you have the line judge there to that umpire there should really only be there to maintain like some sort of civility in the sport, right? And like to make sure old boy
Well, that's
doesn't jump
like the
over.
umpire, yeah, like, and that's why I think like obviously the chair umpire needs to be there, right? But it's for those judgment codes like conduct calls, code violations, that type of stuff, settling disputes. Right now, they're also at Wimbledon. They have to correct the line judges, and there are quite a few matches where it's just the umpires correcting like one or two calls like a game.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
come on.
Yeah, exactly.
And
like
the whole experience, the whole tournament experience can be completely changed. You don't have to get rid of anybody. You get to put people into different positions, right? Where now overall fan experience gets elevated because you're not spending all the money on court personnel, but now off court personnel get to do other things. So when you go to the US Open, we'll have another conversation. You'll see what went well, what doesn't go well, what you think can be improved. What you think can be improved by taking more personnel off the court.
Yeah. Now, the U.S. Open, as of last year, went completely, besides the chair ump, went completely automated. So they, in fact, I think as of this year, I don't know, the French Open probably doesn't because Clay's weird with the technology. But the U.S. Australian Open has gone completely automated with the line calls, and it's seamless. At least like we watched the U.S. Open last year, we watched the Australian Open this year. It's seamless. It works so well because, and they show after every point if it was close, they just show the Hawkeye automatically,
which is a fun element.
And then
too, right?
Yeah, so you get to see how close it was just automatically. Instead of ones where it's just like someone takes it for granted or it doesn't feel like challenging it because maybe they don't have enough challenges left or they want to save it for later or something like that. They didn't get a good look at it, but it was actually out. And then no one saw it. You know, so I think for something like that with tennis, it's just automation is like the way to do it, you know? Because it's no different than, you know, if we just went to completely automated video footage for foul balls in baseball. You know, it's something that doesn't take the real human element out of it still. It's just making sure things are correct.
Right.
So, yes.
Yes, I agree. Indeed. Fuck, I had something else I wanted to bring up.
Well, while you're thinking, I'm going to get another beer.
Okay, never mind. I'll just talk about tennis again real quick as you're getting another beer. Tennis is one of those individual sports that I think is wildly interesting because, you know, bringing it back to beer, we always talk about barriers of entry and tennis being a very affluent sport, I guess, rich sport in many cases. It can be a little bit of a no-brainer as to why tennis being so like barrier of entry. It kind of becomes a no-brainer as to, is that other half?
No, it's the other half. I don't know. Yes, it's other half. Mylar Dust.
Oh, that's really good. I like Mylar bags though.
I had Mylar bags. I haven't had Mylar Dust, so I was like, I'll just grab it.
But going back to barriers of entry of things, right? Which can be very much talked about in a craft beer element. Barriers of entry and the cost associated things. So there's the cost of like getting a Coors Light, but then there's the cost of getting like other halves. is a perfect
Other half, yeah.
perfect example. So it's just like, oh, it's much better stuff, but until you actually can afford to get one, you don't really understand that difference. I think with tennis, until we see something that's more accessible, something that we see that's more readily available, that when that opportunity exists, you see how like real competition and real like edge and grittiness comes out of things. So like when you thought about baseball in like really early America, or like where like not even early America, when like black and Spanish people really got invested into baseball, and you saw what the like, oh, if they have a bat, a glove, and a ball, like what could happen? And basketball being the even easy, basketball and soccer being the two easier ones to like really just demonstrate what happens when you give a kid a ball.
Yeah.
And you allow like actual talent to just like be the deciding force. Yeah, more money invested earlier, like, oh, we can spend time and say, oh, my kid's only doing this. Brings a different level of it. But when you see like the undeniable proof of, opportunity, I think that's what gets really interesting. And I think as much as the USTA wants to push for that in American tennis, it still falls short, because America still ends up being a spot where you can send your kid to Florida and have them be a fucking phenom if you put enough money.
And that's it. And not just your kid or your neighbor's kid. People from all over the world.
Yeah.
Like South Florida is like the hub of tennis development for like a whole bunch of the top 100, 200 players.
Yeah.
And then even more in challengers trying to come up. And it's just like, it's kind of like the it's kind of like the core program issue, right? Where you have this fantastic program, this fantastic development. It's supposed to be for the city of Reading, which is what core stands for. But the people who are benefiting most are the people who aren't representing the city of Reading at the end of it. Same kind of thing with like tennis, where all of these phenom players are coming here. I mean, just name a big tennis player right now, and there's a good chance they trained in Florida at least for a few years, or just do it in their off season.
Yeah,
time.
Or for a few months, even that. Because it's ridiculous to even think about what that even means. So just stop by for a little bit.
Yeah, just stop by. Just swing by Florida.
So what I was going to say to that point too is just like, so it was like, if anyone watches from the like Berks County area, it's the equate like basketball, right? Basketball in Berks County was picking from Reading to go to these different county schools for so long, until like Reading ended up winning state championships again and stuff like that. And then they were sending kids into Reading to play for those teams, right? You started seeing the Great White Flight reverse, and like you saw players coming back into a city to play. And what I was witnessing with tennis was kind of the opposite. And it was a weird sort of thing, where they were sending players into Reading to play, train, and then those players would go back out to the counties and work again. But then they would also take the best Reading player with them to whatever school. But what I think is going to be really interesting to watch is, especially after the girls' tennis team won counties, you're going to see that potentially shift, and you're going to see the players that were always there maybe start coming back into Reading, at least on the girls' team for now. So that's going to be really interesting.
That'd be nice.
Interesting to watch. But at the same time, it's how do you really it should never be about punishing kids, right? Because it's not usually the actions of the kids. It's usually the action of the adults and everything, right? But how do you like make sure to invest properly within your own community? And again, trying to figure out ways to always tie in what we're talking about to craft beer, because at the end of the day, what we're talking about is being black in craft beer. And we always say all the conversations we have is trying to think from an alternative perspective. And I think this is why tennis is one of the best conversations, is because there's so much that's going on, especially in inner city American tennis, that mirrors craft beer, American craft beer. And this is a big one. It's just like, okay, how do you like make sure that the programs that are happening within the city for the tennis programs are actually benefiting what it originally was sought out to be. So the incentives and everything, which could be the incentives for like Barrel and Flow, right? It's just like, oh, we want to make sure that this is a program and a place for black craft beer enthusiasts to flourish, right? And how do you make sure that it's not an area for big named white breweries to piggyback off the hype of being black adjacent, right? I think that's always going to be the conversation, and where things need to be just studied a little more. So it's what I always say is think past the surface level of stuff, right? It's just like, cool, this is good, but now what? It can't be just like, yeah, we got here and it's cool. It's like, okay, we got here and there probably is a next. Sorry, the dog has a backpack.
Like on?
He was dragging it. I think he's going to start going to school. He's going to get a job. He's going to bring in rent money.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's about time.
I'm getting off my soapbox. The last thing I wanted to, if you have any last Wimbledon conversations, tennis conversations, speak now or forever hold your peace.
No more Wimbledon conversations. Well, no. Actually, since we're here, who do you got going all the way?
Is Alcaraz still in it?
He is. He won in straight sets.
Yep. Have you been watching him?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Dude is a beast. He's such a fucking beast.
There is not
his
much
forehand
about him in this tournament that I'm looking at. Like, if someone can just,
it is like
just take this weakness out, he's done. I don't see a weakness right now.
Okay, my only thing with him is he has so many shots. Sometimes he doesn't pick the right one. You know how like sometimes players don't have a great backhand or don't have a great slice. So it's simple, you know? They know what they're going to do and attempt to do. He has so much in his bag that like sometimes I feel like he's kind of like this embarrassment of riches of picking a shot. Like he gets to a ball so easily. So now he's at the ball. He has time to think, well, this could go down the line, or it could be a drop shot, or I could lob it. And it's like,
yes, he needs to, what I call, play blackout tennis.
Just play it, don't think, just go out there, just hit the ball around kind of deal.
Have you ever played a point where you get to the end and you're like, why am I standing here? You've won the point, you've hit an incredible shot, but you were out of body experience for that point. You went brain neutral and everything.
And then the people on the next court are like, hey, man, we're trying to play here. Can you get off the court?
No, yeah, exactly. No, when the people at the court next to you are just like, how the fuck did you do that? You're so serene. No.
Don't give me that bullshit.
Have you ever played the point where like the point ended and...
I know I don't know that I've ever had like the blackout experience, but it was like the out of body experience where like when I'm done, it all comes back to me right there. And it's kind of like,
holy shit, who was that?
Did I just do that? Like, yeah, what was that?
And I think that's what he needs to do is he just needs to trust in his ability and play more blackout or out of body. My guy. more out-of-body tennis where he just lets all the hard work he's put in take over. And I think that is a true different level of playing, is when you can hit that on a more consistent stride. Because he's not the only player that has the embarrassment of riches shot selection. Djokovic is that same player. He just plays out-of-body tennis more.
But I think, to your point, the difference there is Djokovic didn't have it when he was 19. He had to work to get there. So the whole mental aspect of it came along with it. He my game is weak here. I either need a better shot or I need to create a different shot in this situation to cover myself. Alcaraz is just like, damn, my drop shot's great. I can get to any ball. I can I can do everything. So I just don't even know what to do right now. And he's still trying to figure that out, particularly on grass. Because last year, man, and 2 years ago, he was so bad on grass. I think he lost in the second round of Wimbledon last year or a couple of years ago. So I mean, to see him grow, I think he's the big candidate for, the replacement of, those big three. Because obviously Djokovic can keep going for a while, but he's not going to go forever. And everyone that's coming up right now, for the most part, is still super young. So they'll be around by the time Djokovic is gone. So who's going to be at the top there? I also I'm really rooting for Jannik Sinner. I like Jannik Sinner. One, because he's Italian. He's Italian, and Berrettini lost already. So, but Jannik Sinner just one of those.
I don't care for Berrettini.
I don't either, but he's Italian. He's Italian. What are you gonna do? Hey,
gazpacho.
You eat the ball. You hit the ball in the top spin. All Italians are from New York. Okay. According to this, yeah. I think Sinner is just another one with the Alcaraz level of just he was so good so young, and you just hope he can continue, and he has. So, I mean personally, I would like to see if it's possible. Well, let's check. What's the men's draw look like? Men's singles Wimbledon. Who's left? And then on the women's side, Pegula loses in a bit of an upset to Svitolina, I think. So I think all the Americans are out now on the women's side as well.
Wow. Yeah.
Unfortunately.
So women's singles is going to be fun.
It's Sabalenka.
No.
Sabalenka lost?
Yeah, it's Jabeur.
Today?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Odin's Jabeur
won
today.
Vondrousova.
Oh, yeah. She beat Svitolina, right?
Yeah, that's going to be fun. Okay. When do they play? Is that...
That would be Sunday, right?
Saturday.
I think. Oh, is it Saturday? Okay.
Yeah, I'll be watching that. That's going to be a good match. And Sunday will be whoever wins between Sinner and Djokovic and Alcaraz.
Alcaraz.
Medvedev, which I don't actually like Medvedev at all. So I
don't really like you know what it is with Medvedev. It's just he's so good, but it doesn't look good when he does it.
He doesn't look good.
I think that's
fucked up to say, I guess, but he just.
But he doesn't. That forehand is so. Everything he does is just how are you making the ball do this right now?
He's the person that I think I would find annoying for no fault of his own. I would just look at him and he would say something. I'm like, dude, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, it's just
I don't even dislike you. I just don't want to hear you talk.
Well, it's kind of the same with Djokovic, right? Where it's just
no, I just don't like Djokovic.
Oh yeah, I don't like Djokovic either. But it's just it's they're similar in the fact that it's just their all-around game is just good.
Yeah.
Like they're just good
They're good.
at tennis.
You know, it's like it's
But
funny.
they're not. They don't wow you.
It's funny. It's the head coach for Reading right now for tennis is Mikey Fisher, who, for all intents and purposes, if you look at his game, is not a good player. But he's an athlete. This dude is athletic, right? Put him in a sport, he's gonna win the sport. He was a really good guiding force for me when I was a freshman, because he would just take me and be like, bro, just put it in. I could have the best serve in the world, but if it wasn't accurate and it wasn't getting into the fucking box, like, he'd just be like, dude, just fucking think it in. And as an adult tennis player, his words have helped me win some important like points, right? But it was just something I had to learn, and I think for that element, especially when you're looking at high school tennis, public high school tennis, not private league or any of this like circuit shit, his words are very true. And so I think where I see Medvedev is that level of shit where it's just like, on paper maybe it doesn't look like it should work, but it works, and you just like, shit.
It's just annoying. Right. Yeah, it's just like, I think he just has that, like, he kind of just has that feel for the game where it's just like, ability to win. He doesn't have to do anything ridiculous.
1 second.
It's a nice office chair.
By all definitions.
Winning ugly. Yes.
That's what he does.
He does win ugly. I like that comparison.
He wins ugly.
But Djokovic and Medvedev would probably be really good coaches when they're done playing, if they wanted to be. Like that type of thing, right?
It was this is the difference between the two. Both of them have elements that I just don't like them for things that are beyond their control, but Djokovic does things that I just don't like.
Yeah,
and so
exactly.
It's just like, oh, I didn't like you already for no good reason, and now you just added a good reason.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. 100% agree with that. So, you know, I would love to see an Alcaraz Sinner final.
Yeah, me too. But
all
I would
that
also
being
like
said,
to. I would also, if Sinner can't do it, I would love to see Alcaraz shift the tide and just kind of say, "This is my
take
era.
It over."
Joker, sit down.
One of those two got to do it.
So, any last things to say about tennis?
I demoed some new rackets this past week. So
I need to buy a racket. When we played, remember, I realized my racket's broken.
I have a racket if you want to buy it cheap. Did I give you did you try any? Well, no, because you couldn't, because my other racket was broken at the strings were snapped at the time. So we gotta get together and play more often, and
I need to play more
figure
often.
It out. Yeah. We gotta make that happen.
The older I'm getting, the better I feel at sports. Things just click easier.
Mentally.
Yeah, no, I think I am I'm playing some of my best sports. Like, maybe I can't jump as high or I can't run as fast, but
I'm doing the sports better right now.
I am sporting better. No, my shooting's better. My touch, especially like laying up and like rebounding and just like putting things back, is just better. I played one of my first pickup games. I played pickup at 30, finally. And you know,
I haven't even played pickup at 30.
That was a lot of fun, and I hurt. I definitely hurt. Like, maybe physically I'm not the best, but I think my shot and everything is like actually better.
I think we're at the point now where it's like we hurt so much that we're like, we got to do it the easier way. The easier way is just fine.
Yeah, mentally, like you can't just rely on like, I'm just gonna fucking do it now. It's just like,
I'm just gonna go up, mind over matter, as Trey would say. Just
get off of my shoe. Anyway, what I'm bringing up before
Spare
we
the
end this, because
details,
I'm
as
going
it-
to murder my dog. My Todd Snyder shoe in his fucking mouth. We close on the house tomorrow. 8:30.
Congratulations. Let's toast with the little beer that we have left to a new house.
Yeah, I'm really excited. So the reason I wanted to bring it up, not to like humble brag or anything like that, it was to actually say, when I was at the first apartment, there was Studio B where we were recording some of the episodes and everything like that illegally. I had no business being in that room recording. Like, I actually got kicked out of that room at one point.
That whole situation was
like,
just.
are you utilizing the room? I'm like, no. I was just like, you have a whole studio set up. I'm like,
No. Studio's a strong word.
Studio's a strong word. But we'll be
You
able to
had
operate out
you
of
had
this.
like soundproof stuff.
We'll be able
Studio's
to
a strong word. You had
basement.
glass. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to be operating out of this basement. We'll be doing almost all of the production out of there, and so that's going to largely be done with the equipment that we currently have and everything like that. But there's going to be things that need to be done in there, soundproofing. There's going to be just visual things, just finishing the basement as well, potentially at some point, hopefully. That being said, I'm bringing it up because it's something that I think we can get funded or grants or hopefully some donations through. So that's something that I'll be looking at if anyone watches this and it's just like, A, I want to spend money on you guys, or 2, has any ideas of how we can get some of this funded. I would love to hear it because I think soundproof in that basement, I think, and the lovely thing about soundproofing is like those materials are just ripe for like spray painting, like sponsored by Promise Tennis, right? So easy.
So easy.
So easy.
So easy. Advertisements.
Yeah, so easy. So
hey, sponsors! It's so easy to
do it,
to be visible.
Yeah, but
yeah, do it. Smoke. You smoking yet?
I think we have some really cool things coming down the pike, as it's said. But I'm going to be looking into funding this a little differently, getting some things to make things work a little easier. August is almost here, and Hannah's going to be done with her MBA, and so we'll actually have that third person on the team.
She's going to the league?
Yeah. She's going to be done with the summer
what
league.
Team?
She's taking her talents to
South
Brooklyn.
Beach.
That's what I wanted to bring up. We're not going to talk about this, but Lonnie's in Brooklyn.
That's right. Lonnie is in Brooklyn. Because the Lakers, they did. I mean, they didn't do him dirty, but they kind of did him dirty.
I do love everyone being like, "Oh, so the guy that single-handedly handed you a playoff victory, you let go. Cool."
Yeah, and the weird thing is, though, he wouldn't have even been in the position to hand you that victory single-handedly had he just been played the way he'd been played all year. Because the wins they were getting were he was doing a lot of work. LeBron was hurt half the year. Anthony Davis is Anthony Davis, so you might see him a month out of the year.
So
like,
to not get into this conversation because we need to end this live, but while I'm glad he's getting off the Lakers, which I didn't want to see him on the Lakers to begin with, hear me out.
Brooklyn?
We talked about this, and I forgot to bring it up. Last time we talked about the Heat and their playoff performance and their NBA Finals performance, I forgot to mention that Lonnie was a potential there before he went to the Lakers. In that trading agreement thing, he was supposed...
That would have been so nuts.
They actually might have won with Lonnie.
That would have been nuts. Having the additional, can you imagine the crazy depth they would have had then with Lonnie?
And so,
because he's basically like your Tyler Hero.
who was hurt and did shit.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the
Crazy.
only I wish the best for Lonnie. My thing
But
is, and maybe Brooklyn proves me wrong, but I just don't see this as a long-term team again.
the thing about Brooklyn is it's going to be like a slightly better Spurs experience for Lonnie. They're young. Yeah, but they're young. He's established now. You have Mikal Bridges, who's really good. And they kind of have like a little young base that they could build off of. I think it's going to just see where we are this time next year.
Okay, I was going to say, how many years do you give it? Do you give it 1, 2, 3, 5? Because 5 seems like
know, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, well, once the contract's up, then it's not really his choice. Sure. You know, even if he wants, I'm sure he wanted to stay in LA.
It's not his choice until he can make it his choice.
Right. So if he balls out this year, then he can make it his choice. And that might be to stay.
That's where I'm like.
But I think it's one of those things where it's like he has a great I think this is a great opportunity for his career, because I think I like the Lakers thing because he got to play with LeBron, and it sounds like from like the interviews I've seen of him that he learned a lot about the game from him.
Dude.
And so it was good on the developmental side.
And you walk away with Curry's respect, like
that. Yeah, exactly. So you have
huge.
I think it was a great year for his career in terms of taking another step.
I agree.
And now he's going to be able to kind of go back to a different situation that was closer to where he was when he was younger in San Antonio. And now he has the opportunity to be a little more of that leader, be a little more of, have a little more impact on the games now, and be a little more consistent with his play time and things of that nature. And I think this could be like the year that he jumped, like the jump off year, So I think he's in prime position.
Cool.
I would say.
You brought more comfort to me, so.
And since we're announcing great things, we did sign a lease yesterday.
Send me the property.
So because it's the listing's still up.
Are you in?
What are we, chopped liver over here?
Yeah, Lancaster property.
Yeah. Yes, sir. We're down in the city. Nice location, close to the inner city, close to the downtown area, without being like right up on everything. So,
I mean, yeah, it's kind of nice. Maybe might take the train up to you. Honestly, though, if you when you think about coming down, sometimes just consider taking the train down.
Train. I need to see how long that takes.
I don't think it's much longer than driving. Hello? Hello?
Yeah. We got a little bit of lag there.
Okay. Yeah, we should end this because now we're just talking about how nice it would be to see each other more.
This is the wholesome content everyone's waiting for. We're talking about missing each other with a dog in the background.
This is 95% of the content. When we recorded an hour plus show, we made 3 hours plus of just talking about how we miss each other.
What do you think's gonna happen when we leave the live?
I'm gonna call you and be like, "All right, so we're."
Well, you don't even have to. We can just stay on.
Yeah, we got to figure out what we're gonna eat on Sunday anyway. So, thank you for tuning into the live.
Thank you for tuning in. So what was that? Your what is that called? What was that dance called? Was that Whoa dance? No, yeah, where you did the wax on, wax off.
Anyway, by the time we do this next time, we should probably be we'll be in a new spot. The beer should probably be canned. We need to come up with a list of people that we're going to send this out to. But just for anyone that is listening, and maybe if I can grab this bit at the end, we will be doing a strong ale for Barrel and Flow. It's going to be inspired by the Manhattan cocktail. It's going to have smoky elements. It's going to have plum, orange elements that we've squeezed by hand. But it should be really interesting. It's kind of an ode to my dad in a way. Definitely from the cocktail that I most remember him by, and by the spirit that he most often stole from Chris. I had to do it. But the label...
Hey, first of all, it wasn't a rye whiskey.
Still bourbon.
It was just a bourbon.
They're
different.
Count it. Yeah, but the label, the can art should be really cool. So I'm really excited for that. And dude, we did that.
When we taste it, that's when I'm gonna be like,
real.
We did that.
Yeah. So this is like the issue I'm having with tomorrow, right? I was just like, oh, I have a house. I don't have a house. I don't have keys in my hand. I don't have beers in my hand, right? Like it doesn't exist until we see it.
Until it exists, right?
I think that's an episode. We'll leave it on this.
Yeah.
I think there is an element of I'll believe it when I like see it or when I physically have it. And I wonder how much of that is stemmed off of like how, especially in Black culture, where the inability to actually trust something comes from. Because that's a
very that's one of those stereotypes. I definitely
there's something there, and I think it's deep. So, all right, until next time. Peace. Let's see if I can do this transition.